I can still hear her laugh in my head. High-pitched, carefree, like nothing could ever go wrong. And I can still hear his voice, deeper than mine, always a bit smug, always one step ahead. I never thought I'd say this about my own brother, but if I could erase one person from my life, it would be him. It started on a Thursday, the kind of day where nothing feels quite right. I spilled coffee on my shirt before work, got stuck in traffic, missed an important meeting, but the worst part came after I got home. The house was quiet, too quiet, not even the usual hum of the dishwasher or the faint sound of TV in the background. I called out her name. Lena, no answer. Her car was in the driveway. Lights were on in the living room, but the silence wrapped around me like a warning. I walked down the hallway, heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. That's when I heard it. A sound I'll never forget. A low moan. A breath. A name. Not mine. Jason. My brother's name. I froze. For a moment I thought I misheard. Maybe it was the TV. Maybe she was on the phone. Maybe anything but that. But then I pushed the door open, and my world ended. There they were. My girlfriend of 3 years. And my brother. My flesh and blood. Together. In our bed. She screamed. He didn't. He just looked at me. Blank face. No guilt. No shame. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I didn't say a word. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked out. I drove for hours that night. No destination. Just the open road and a heart splitting apart. The worst part? It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the history. The memories. The lies. Because now I knew. This hadn't started today. And I had no idea how far back it really went. The next morning, I woke up in my car, parked outside an old gas station off Route 27. My neck ached from sleeping upright, and my mouth was dry like sandpaper. But the pain in my body was nothing compared to the hollow, burning ache in my chest. That kind of pain doesn't let you breathe right. It sits heavy, like a stone lodged behind your ribs. I didn't go home. I didn't go to work. I didn't answer any calls. My phone had been buzzing nonstop. Lena, my mother, even Jason tried calling me. I turned it off. I couldn't bear to hear any of their voices, especially not hers, especially not his. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. It smelled like mildew and desperation, but at least it was quiet. I needed space. Space to think, to scream, to fall apart in private. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how the two people I trusted the most could do this to me. Lena and I weren't perfect, no relationship is, but I loved her. I really did. We were building something, talking about buying a house, starting a family. Just last month we looked at rings. She cried when I showed her the one I thought she'd like. Said she couldn't wait to be my wife. I believed every word. And Jason, he was my brother, my only sibling. We weren't always close growing up, but we got tighter in our 20s. He helped me move into that house. He ate dinner with us every other weekend. Lena always said he was charming, funny, too smooth for his own good. I should have seen it. I should have listened to that small voice inside that warned me, just a whisper, but I ignored it. I replayed everything in my mind over and over again. Every hug, every laugh between them, every time she looked a little too long when he spoke. I thought I was imagining things. Paranoia, I told myself. She would never. He would never. But they did. And I had to know the truth. So I went back. 3 days later, I returned to the house. I parked down the street and just watched from my car. Lena's car was gone. Jason's wasn't there either. I waited until the street was empty, then went inside using my key. Everything looked the same, and yet everything felt wrong. The couch, the pictures on the wall, the smell of her perfume still hanging in the air. It all felt fake now, like props in a play I hadn't realized I was watching. I went into the bedroom. The sheets were clean, the bed made. No trace of what I'd seen, like it had all been a dream. But then I opened the drawer in her nightstand and found the journal. It wasn't a diary exactly, just a small leather-bound notebook she used to write in when she couldn't sleep. I never read it before. I respected her privacy. But not anymore. I flipped through it, hands trembling, until I found what I was looking for. April 4th. He kissed me. I didn't stop him. I can't believe it. Jason is so different from Matt. More intense. More alive. What does that say about me? April 22nd. Matt was working late again. Jason came over. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And now I can't stop thinking about him. May 17th. I think I'm in love with both of them. Is that possible? Jason says he'd leave everything for me. But Matt, he's good. He doesn't deserve this. God, what am I doing? My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the notebook. My heart didn't just break. It shattered into pieces too small to ever fit back together. I sat on the edge of the bed, the journal still open on the floor, staring at the words like they were written in fire. My chest felt like it was caving in, each breath shorter than the last, like I was drowning in a room full of air. The betrayal wasn't a moment, it was a process. It unfolded slowly, behind my back, in my own house, and the person I had loved the most had documented every step of it like it was a story worth remembering. A twisted romance full of stolen touches and whispered promises. And I had been the footnote, the background character in my own life. I didn't cry. Not then. My tears had dried up days ago. I felt something colder, something sharp. Like the warmth in me had been cut out and what remained was a hollow version of myself, moving through the motions on autopilot. I didn't even know why I stayed. I could have walked out, burned the place down, screamed at the top of my lungs. But I didn't. I just sat there, surrounded by the ghosts of my own ignorance. Eventually, I got up and walked into the living room. Her laptop was on the coffee table. I opened it. No password. I don't know what I was looking for, maybe more proof, maybe answers. But what I found were emails. Hundreds of them. Some from work, others from Jason. And they weren't careful. They didn't bother to hide it. It was all there, plans to meet while I was away, complaints about me, about my boring routines and predictable life. Lena had even sent him pictures, private ones, taken in the very bed where I used to hold her every night. I wanted to smash the screen. I wanted to tear the whole house apart. But instead, I just sat there, reading every single message, torturing myself with the details. The thing about betrayal is it's not just the act. It's the intimacy of the lies. The fact that they knew me so well, used that knowledge, and still chose to deceive me. Over and over again. The worst message came last. Dated 3 days before I walked in on them. From Jason to her. I'm done pretending. I don't care if he finds out. Let him. He's soft. He won't do anything. Soft. That word echoed in my skull like a gunshot. My own brother called me soft. After stealing my girlfriend, my home, my trust, he reduced me to a single insult. And maybe, just maybe, he was right. Because I didn't fight back. I didn't confront them. I didn't throw punches or make threats. I walked away. Like a coward. Like someone who couldn't handle the truth. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Something in me shifted that night. The version of me that let things slide, that gave people too many chances, that version died. What rose in his place was someone colder. Smarter. More dangerous. If they wanted to play dirty, then I'd show them just how soft I could be. They thought they broke me. But they just gave me a reason to rebuild. And this time, I'd make sure they'd feel every ounce of pain they left me with. Revenge wasn't something I planned. It wasn't some movie montage where I plotted every move, smirking in the mirror while I tied my tie. It came slowly, like a fever. Quiet at first, but burning hotter with each passing day. I left the house that night with nothing but my wallet and the sick knowledge that the two people I loved most were willing to tear me apart for the thrill of it. And for what? A few months of passion? The novelty of something forbidden? It didn't matter anymore. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead. But I sure as hell wasn't going to disappear. The first thing I did was move out. I didn't tell them. I packed what I needed during the hours they weren't home and left everything else behind. Let them have it. The couch we bought together, the TV I paid for, even the damn coffee machine she swore she couldn't live without, it was all tainted. I rented a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy. Just a bed, a kitchen, and 4 walls where no one had ever lied to me. It was peace, even if it was lonely. I blocked them both. On everything. No calls, no messages, no explanations. I didn't owe them closure. But I kept tabs. Quietly. Through mutual friends, social media, the occasional sighting. I knew Lena was still trying to call me, voicemails piling up, full of half-truths and apologies I never listened to. And Jason? He never reached out. Not once. I think that hurt more. The coldness. The certainty that he never saw me as a brother to begin with. Just a stepping stone to what he wanted. But the universe, I've learned, has a strange way of balancing the scales. A few weeks after I vanished from their lives, things started to unravel for them. At first, I didn't believe it. A friend from work, Kelly, mentioned it over lunch one day. You didn't hear? Jason lost his job. Company's downsizing or something. Sucks. I nodded, pretending it meant nothing. But inside, a spark flickered. A few days later, another friend dropped a bomb. Lena had moved in with Jason. Too fast, too desperate. The romance of betrayal doesn't look so shiny when it's dragged into the daylight, stripped of secrecy and fantasy. Bills piling up. Arguments. Public fights at bars. I stayed quiet, but I paid attention. Every crack in their fairy tale was a balm to my wounds. And then I made my move. I sent them each the same thing. A plain white envelope. No return address. Inside, a copy of Lena's journal entries, the worst ones. The ones where she compared us. The ones where she said she felt nothing when she kissed me even as she pretended to love me. And I highlighted one specific line in red. I think Jason is just using me. But it's too late now. I've already ruined everything. I mailed them on a Monday. By Thursday, Jason showed up at my office. He looked like shit. Unshaven. Bags under his eyes. Eyes filled with rage or maybe shame. Hard to tell. You think that's funny? He hissed, gripping the edge of my desk. Sending that crap to her? To me? I didn't flinch. You thought screwing my girlfriend was funny, I replied. Seems like your sense of humor is just fine when it's not on the other end. He stared at me. No apology. No regret. Just wounded pride. You ruined everything, he muttered. No, I said, standing slowly. You did. I just watched you burn it. He didn't say another word. Just turned and walked out. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. A real smile. Because justice, even when small, is a beautiful thing. After Jason stormed out of my office, something inside me shifted permanently. It was like watching a snake retreat into the shadows after realizing it had bitten the wrong man. He wasn't expecting me to fight back. He thought I'd crumble, disappear, maybe drink myself into oblivion like some tragic figure in a country song. But I wasn't broken, I was sharpening. Every day, every breath, every sleepless night was like honing a blade I didn't even know I had. And when I smiled that day, it wasn't out of pettiness. It was clarity. Pure, crystalline clarity that I didn't need revenge to feel powerful, I just needed to stop bleeding. Lena didn't confront me in person. She sent an email. Long, rambling. Full of guilt and twisted logic. She talked about how things just happened, how she never meant to hurt anyone, how Jason filled a space I didn't even know was empty. She used all the classic lines, like betrayal was some kind of accidental misstep, a lapse in judgment, instead of a cold, calculated series of choices. She even had the nerve to ask if we could talk, just once, to find closure. Closure. As if closure was a gift she had the right to ask for after ripping my heart out with her bare hands. I didn't respond. Instead, I printed the email and burned it in the sink of my apartment. Watched the words curl into ash and disappear. And then I started living. Really living. I threw myself into my work, picked up extra projects, got promoted within 2 months. People noticed. They said I looked different, more focused, more driven. They didn't know the fire they saw wasn't ambition. It was survival. I started going to the gym again, eating better, sleeping more. I reconnected with old friends, people I hadn't seen in years because I was too busy playing house with someone who was playing me. I remembered who I was before Lena, before Jason, before the lies. And I liked that guy. I missed him. Then one night, about 3 months after it all exploded, I saw them. Together. At a grocery store of all places. They looked like hell. Jason had lost weight, his jaw tighter than I'd ever seen it, eyes sunken like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. Lena looked worn. Hair pulled back, no makeup, eyes darting nervously like a deer waiting to be hit. They saw me before I saw them, and when our eyes met, the world seemed to pause. Just for a second. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I didn't say a single word. I just walked past them. And God, it felt good. Because in that moment I realized something. Forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about cutting the rope they tied around your soul. They no longer had power over me. Not their betrayal, not their regret, not even their presence. They were just two strangers bound together by guilt, dragging each other down. And I was free. Freedom is a strange thing. You think it comes with fanfare, with a dramatic moment, fireworks, applause, maybe even a tearful epiphany under the stars. But in reality, freedom sneaks in quietly. One morning you wake up and realize that the pain doesn't own you anymore. That the faces that haunted you now barely echo in your thoughts. That your smile isn't forced, your breath isn't tight, and your heart no longer flinches at the memory of what was lost. That's what happened to me. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual. A slow shedding of the past until I could finally see myself clearly again. And in that clarity, something unexpected grew: peace. Real peace. The kind I never had even when I thought I was happy. Lena and I had built something based on convenience and routine, not truth. I saw that now. We were more in love with the idea of being in love than with each other. She craved attention. I craved stability. Jason gave her the chaos she mistook for passion, and I gave her a life she didn't know how to value. It wasn't fair, but it was real. And sometimes the truth hurts more than the lie. But even with that understanding, I still carried the scars. Not just from the betrayal, but from the way it made me doubt everything about myself. Was I too boring? Too trusting? Did I miss the signs because I was naive, or because I didn't want to believe the worst in people I loved? These questions haunted me more than their actions ever could. Because they made me question my worth, my instincts, my identity. So I started therapy. Yeah, therapy. Something I used to think was for people who couldn't handle life. Turns out I was one of those people. And it was the best decision I ever made. My therapist, Julia, wasn't soft. She didn't coddle me. She challenged me. Made me sit with the discomfort. Made me face the versions of myself that allowed the betrayal to fester in silence. She asked the hard questions. Why didn't I confront Jason sooner? Why did I ignore Lena's emotional distance? Why did I tie my self-worth to their loyalty? It was brutal. But it was necessary. Because healing doesn't happen when you push the pain away. It happens when you invite it in, sit with it, let it scream until it has nothing left to say. Only then can you begin to rebuild not just your life, but your sense of self. I started journaling. Not like Lena did, but for me. For clarity. For honesty. I wrote letters I never sent. I poured out every ounce of rage, sorrow, confusion, and slowly, very slowly, it began to feel lighter. Then something unexpected happened. I met someone. Not in a bar. Not through an app. But at a bookstore. Of all places. She was standing in the psychology section holding the same book I had just finished reading. We laughed awkwardly when we reached for the same copy of something by Esther Perel. Her name was Rachel. She had kind eyes and a voice that made everything around her seem calmer. We started talking. Nothing flirtatious, just real. And it felt easy. Effortless in a way I forgot relationships could be. I didn't rush it. I wasn't looking for a distraction or a replacement. I was just looking for connection. And with Rachel, I found it. No lies. No games. Just two broken people trying to heal together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Hope, when it returns, doesn't announce itself with a parade. It comes quietly, almost cautiously, as if unsure it's welcome. That's how it was with Rachel. There was no grand spark, no instant fireworks, but there was warmth. A slow, steady warmth that spread through me every time we talked, every time she laughed at my dry jokes, every time we sat in silence without needing to fill it. It was healing in the most unexpected form. And the best part? She didn't know my story, at least, not at first. She didn't look at me like I was a victim or a cautionary tale. She looked at me like a man, one she was curious about, not one she had to fix. We took things slow. I told her up front that I had baggage. That I was still unpacking years of betrayal, disappointment, and doubt. She didn't flinch. She just nodded, told me she had her own, and that maybe we could help each other carry some of it. There was no pressure, no timelines, no unspoken expectations. We just existed in each other's orbit, comfortable, cautious, curious. But even as things blossomed with Rachel, I couldn't pretend the past hadn't left its mark. I still had nightmares sometimes, flashes of that night, the sound of Lena's voice whispering Jason's name in the dark, the image of them tangled together in the bed that used to be mine. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart racing, hands clenched into fists. But the difference now was I didn't wake up alone. Rachel would stir, reach over, and hold my hand. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Her presence was answer enough. One evening, about 6 months into our quiet companionship, she asked me the question I'd been dreading. What happened to you before we met? We were sitting on her couch, a half-empty bottle of wine between us, soft music playing in the background. Her voice was gentle, no pressure, just curiosity. And for a moment, I froze. Because saying it out loud, telling someone new about the ugliest chapter of your life, it's like peeling off a bandage that's barely held the wound together. But I told her. Everything. I told her about Lena. About Jason. About the journal, the emails, the confrontation. About the way it hollowed me out and how I had to rebuild from the wreckage. I watched her face as I spoke, bracing for pity, for horror, for discomfort. But none of that came. She just listened, really listened, with this quiet strength that made me feel safe. And when I finished, she didn't say, "I'm sorry." She said, "I'm proud of you." It was the first time anyone had said that to me since it happened. And it broke me in the best possible way. Because in that moment I realized something I hadn't been able to admit, not even to myself. I had survived. Not just endured. Not just moved on. But truly survived. And not as some broken, jaded version of myself, but as someone better. Wiser. Stronger. I wasn't defined by their betrayal anymore. I was defined by how I rose after it. By how I chose love again even when I had every reason to close myself off. And Rachel, she didn't complete me. She reminded me I was already whole. Life after betrayal doesn't come with a manual. There's no checklist, no guaranteed timeline for when things stop hurting. Some days you think you've moved on and then a smell, a song, a memory drags you back like quicksand. Other days you wake up and feel light as if some invisible burden finally let go. Healing is uneven like that. It's not a straight line. But with Rachel, the peaks were higher and the valleys less deep. She wasn't just a distraction from my past, she was a mirror reflecting back the parts of me I thought I'd lost for good, the ability to trust, to feel joy, to want something real without the fear of it falling apart. But even as our relationship deepened, part of me was still tethered to unfinished business. Not with Lena. Not even with Jason. With myself. Because while I had come a long way, I hadn't fully let go of the need for understanding, for closure. Not for them. For me. I needed to look at the man I used to be, the one who ignored the red flags, who swallowed his doubts, who mistook routine for love, and forgive him. He didn't deserve the pain that came to him. But he also needed to own his part in how far things went before they broke. So, one weekend I took a trip. Alone. I went back to the house. Not to confront them, they had moved out months ago and it had been sold to a new family. But I wanted to see it. To stand in front of the place that had once held my dreams and face it not with pain, but with power. It was surreal. The yard looked smaller than I remembered. The windows had new curtains. The door was painted blue instead of the dull gray I once knew so well. It wasn't mine anymore, and that was okay. I didn't feel sadness. I felt peace. I stood there for a while, letting the memories roll through me like a movie reel. The good ones, the bad ones, the ones that used to leave me breathless with pain. And then I let them go. One by one. Like releasing weights I'd carried for too long. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt necessary. Like exhaling after holding your breath for years. That night I called Rachel. "I think I finally let it go," I told her. Her voice on the other end was warm, steady. "I'm proud of you." And this time I believed it. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. About the future. About maybe moving in together. About taking a trip somewhere new, somewhere untouched by old ghosts. And for the first time I allowed myself to imagine a future that wasn't defined by survival but by possibility. And as I sat on the balcony of that rented motel room staring out at the city lights, I realized something profound. Forgiveness isn't just something you give others. It's something you owe yourself. And when you finally offer it not as a gift but as a release, it's like turning the final page on a chapter that no longer serves you. Not to forget, but to move forward without chains. Time has a strange way of softening even the sharpest edges. What once felt like a daily battle just to get out of bed, to go to work, to exist, had become routine again, but this time not out of numbness. There was purpose now. I had rebuilt a life that didn't revolve around someone else's love or betrayal. It revolved around me. My choices. My healing. And slowly, without even realizing it, I had crossed that invisible line where the past no longer defined me, it simply informed me. Like an old scar, visible, permanent, but no longer painful. Rachel and I took that trip. We flew out to Oregon, rented a cabin in the woods, unplugged from everything. No cell service. No emails. Just trees, silence, and the sound of wind through pine. We hiked during the day, cooked simple meals at night, talked about things that mattered and things that didn't. There was a moment, sitting on the porch with mugs of coffee in our hands, where I looked at her and saw something I never thought I'd find again: home. Not the kind made of bricks and keys, but the kind made of trust, honesty, presence. She wasn't a bandage. She wasn't a replacement. She was her own person, and I was mine. And together we were choosing this. Choosing each other. Every day. But healing doesn't erase the past. It just gives it less power. About a year after the breakup, I ran into Lena. It was inevitable, I suppose. Small city, overlapping circles. It happened at a friend's engagement party. She was alone. I was with Rachel. We locked eyes across the room, and for a split second, the air between us thickened with all the things left unsaid. But then she smiled, a tight, unsure smile, and I nodded. That was it. No words. No confrontation. Just two people who used to share everything, now strangers again, bound only by memories. Later that night, she approached me while Rachel was speaking with someone else. Her voice was low, almost timid. "You look happy," she said. I didn't hesitate. "I am." She nodded. "Good." I wanted to say, "I'm sorry for everything. I know it doesn't change what happened, but I needed you to hear it." I could have said 100 things. I could have asked her why, reminded her of the pain, the betrayal, the journal, the silence. But none of that mattered anymore. "I know," I said. "And I've forgiven you." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She just nodded again and walked away. And just like that, the last tether snapped. Not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with grace. The chapter truly closed. When I rejoined Rachel, I didn't mention the encounter. Not because I was hiding it, but because it no longer needed space in my story. What I had now was worth so much more than the weight of what I had lost. The truth is, betrayal changes you. It rips away your illusions, forces you to see things, people, yourself more clearly. It's brutal. It's unfair. But if you let it, it can also be the beginning of something better. Not because of what happened, but because of who you become after. Looking back now, I can see the full arc of what happened, not just as a series of painful events, but as a transformation. I'm not the same man who stood frozen in that bedroom doorway, heart shattered by the sight of the two people he trusted most, destroying everything in a single breath. That man was blindsided, broken, consumed by betrayal. He was lost in grief, paralyzed by disbelief. But he was also the beginning. The seed of someone stronger, someone more aware, someone who would rise not in spite of the betrayal, but because of it. What they did to me was cruel, yes. It stripped me bare. But what I did afterward, that was mine. I didn't retaliate with hate. I didn't let bitterness eat me alive. I chose healing. I chose self-reflection. I chose to rebuild piece by piece, even when my hands were trembling. And somewhere along the journey, I stopped surviving and started living. I began to realize that life isn't about never being hurt, it's about learning who you become when you are. Rachel and I eventually moved in together. It was a quiet decision made over coffee and shared routines. No big speeches. Just a mutual knowing that we were ready. Living with her wasn't like living with Lena. There was no walking on eggshells, no unspoken tension. We communicated. We laughed God, we laughed so much. And on the hard days, we gave each other space, but never distance. She didn't heal me. I did that myself. But she gave me a place to land, and that kind of trust, the kind built slow and honest, is worth everything. Sometimes people ask me if I would take it all back, if I could rewrite that part of my life. And I used to say yes instantly. Of course I would. Who wouldn't want to avoid the kind of pain? But now I pause. Because without that storm, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have discovered the depth of my own resilience. I wouldn't have known what it means to truly choose yourself, to walk away from destruction without needing to return fire. And I wouldn't have found Rachel, not just her, the person, but the idea of her. The possibility of real love. Of starting again. So, to anyone listening, anyone reading who's been betrayed, who's been broken, I won't lie to you. It hurts. More than words can say. But it will not define you unless you let it. You are not the lies someone told you. You are not the loyalty someone discarded. You are not the pain that tried to break you. You are what comes after. You are the healing. You are the choice to keep going even when it feels impossible. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your power.